All right, Focus Few, we are back for another episode, and today's guest doesn't just talk mindset, he embodies it. I have the amazing Mr. Chazz Scott here in the seat tonight. He is a national speaker, a mindset expert, and founder of Supramentum, where he teaches leaders how to unlock peak performance without burning out. Okay. He's trained in neuroscience based habit change, breath work, and mental resilience. And his work is all about helping ambitious people like you all master their mind so they can master their mission. If you've ever felt like success was costing you your sanity, this right here is the conversation you need. So, welcome in, Mr. Chazz. What's going on with you?
What's going on, family? I appreciate the intro. I'm excited to be here. It's going to be a great discussion.
Yes, yes. So I always like to start with the backstory of all of my guests because I think a lot of times high achievers, successful people, business owners, we get into these spaces where we feel like we are the only ones going through. But a lot of times when we speak to authors and podcasters and just people who have started nonprofits or businesses, it started based on a own breakthrough or something happened within their own life to get them to where they are today. So tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you brought that up. And I think there's two pivotal moments in my life that sort of got me to where I am now, and there would have been no way I would have planned it. So back in, let's see, I would say about 2013, I was down at Hampton University studying computer science. And at that point in time, I was trying to really understand who I was, understand what success meant to me, understand what it means to be a black male in America, understand what it means to figure out where I'm headed in life. And it was a really tough time. But I actually ran across a book. Somebody had told me about it. Then I heard it again a couple weeks after, and I'm like, ooh, there's God talking to me. I need to go read this book. And that book was Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, Power of Positive Thinking. And as I started to read that book, it completely transformed my mind. It widened my understanding of who I was, my connection with God, as well as like the fact that the way that I think unconsciously and consciously affects my reality. And that was new to me. Nobody has ever said those words to me in the way that it did. So it was at that point in time where I was at Hampton and I said to myself, my goodness, not only did it change me, I was like, man, I got to give this to youth, especially back in Baltimore. I grew up in the Ellicott City, Columbia area, and I was always in Baltimore, but at that time I said to myself, I got to create something for youth, and that was when we started Positively Caviar, which is how we basically host fun, interactive mental wellness workshops to encourage youth, but also give youth tools and strategies to curb stress and understand how to use breath work and meditation, and also give them a space where we can get rid of the stigmas associated around mental health. Mm-hmm. So it was at that point in time where I had just graduated school. I had my master's in cybersecurity, undergrad in computer science, and I was building a nonprofit. And like most high achievers, you think that you can work all day and not take care of your body. Okay? So yes. I think we can all understand that. And this is the second moment where I had a change in my life, which is, I read so many self-help books, but there was a moment in time where I was working harder professionally, but my inner life wasn't getting better. And I said, wait a minute, there's something amiss here. I thought if I work harder, my life gets better. There's something wrong. So I basically went on a journey to really understand how to live a successful and healthy life, because I was waking up depressed. I was going into a job. I was making, the six-figure salary. I had a nice BMW. I had a condo looking over the Potomac, and I was building a nonprofit, and I was living in my dream job in cybersecurity and intelligence community. And in that time, I realized that I needed to change my definition of success. And I went ahead and tried to read every book I could on positive psychology, neuroscience, mental health, what success actually was, and how to actually have a fulfilling life. And I went through a change in terms of my systems and my practices and my habits. And that eventually led me to start doing coaching with entrepreneurs, doing seminars and leading engagements with corporations, all based upon how to build a life that feels as good as it looks. Because what's the point of working so hard? You're climbing up this mountain, you get to the peak of the mountain. Not only do you feel like you've been climbing the wrong mountain, but you haven't been enjoying the journey.
You're miserable.
You're miserable. Exactly. Miserable. Yep.
Man. So I know I personally resonate with that because if you're not familiar with my entire story, I worked for the fire service for 20 years, pretty much. And I think the commonalities with African Americans, right? We get into these industries where we're like the only, or we're one of the few, and we are conditioned to believe that we have to work so much harder than our counterparts. And throughout my career, I was just balls to the walls. Just one, I wanted to promote, I wanted to reach rank. But not only that, I just always felt like I was being examined. One colleague can do something, but I absolutely have to do it 10 times better. And so I get to the promotion, I make history, I'm the first Black woman. And when I got there, I'm like, I don't even want this. And I was so unhappy. So unhappy. And in 2013, a few months after I promoted, I got sick. Like hospital, 9 days. Doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And that was the brick upside my head to say something ain't right, And I think the work that you've done and you're doing with youth is so important, because if we knew what we knew now during those impressionable ages and stages in life, would we have to get to that point of the brick upside your head?
Right. Yeah, no, I love the fact that you just shared your story on that. And I understand, because what's interesting is I think humans, we're very hard-headed, but we either learn through pain or we learn through inspiration. Most of us learn through pain.
Yeah.
And, my goal has been to share my story, especially us. I feel like, especially in the African American community, you're right. We feel like we have to work twice as hard just to get, the same amount. And, a lot of my coaching clients and the entrepreneurs and leaders that I coach, they feel this unconscious guilt when they're not working. They feel guilty for resting. They feel guilty for taking care of themselves. And, I call it sacrificial guilt syndrome, where we feel like, because of what our ancestors have been through and what our families have sacrificed for us, we have to work nonstop. And what I found through my research in my book, Success Starts Within, that is the exact opposite way on how to live a full and healthy life. Not only that, when you take care of yourself, your body and brain work more efficiently and effectively. Your focus, your concentration, your creativity, your balance. People want to be around you so you can attract more clients. This is how you live a full life if you take care of yourself. And this is what I've been trying to drill into a lot of us. And I had to drill it into myself, because there'll be nights where I'm like, I got to finish this.
Yep.
And I'm not going to finish it until, I'm not going to go to sleep until I finish it. But now I say, Chazz, I'm going to sleep. I'm getting at least 6 to 7, 8 hours of sleep, and I'll wake up and I'll start it again tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So y'all, Chazz is dropping the gems early, because if you follow me, I do not play about sleep. Okay. And so one of the things, again, being in the fire service, I worked 14 hours overnight. Sometimes I would work 24, 36 hours, like straight. Overtime, exchange, working for people. And then when I transitioned into full-time entrepreneurship, this grind culture that we're in, like, here's another conditioning and even in my opinion, a limiting belief that you have to be on all the time. And one of the very first things that I promised to myself, I don't care how busy the workday is. I don't care how much the phone is ringing, how much new business is coming in. I have a boundary and I shut shit down, okay, every night. Excuse me. And I think, you kind of hinted to it a few moments ago about what success, it is not even about what it looks like. It's about what it feels like. And when you are able to be balanced and rested and what's the buzzword now? Your nervous system isn't, it just makes for an entirely better experience, better business, better creativity, all of it. All of it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think when people get a taste of it, so just to give you some backstory, with my coaching clients, I have like a 90-day program. It's called the Rise and Reclaim Blueprint, which takes people from burnout to clarity, confidence, and reclaiming your energy in life. And one of the things that, it's a 3-phase program in 90 days, but one of the things that, some of my clients actually say is like, wow, I didn't know I could feel this good throughout the day during work in the grind. I didn't know I could feel this good. And what's so interesting is amazing things begin to happen in their businesses because they're calm, they're coherent, they're able to have more mental clarity and making better decisions. There's no indecisiveness, and they're able to become more creative and finding more business opportunities and solutions. But not only that, you and I both know this, when you're balanced and you're centered and your nervous system is coherent, the energy, the people that you work with or people that want to be around you, they want to be around you, and they just practically want to give you money because they feel that calm, collected energy. So, this is one of the things I always said. You mentioned it, which is we got to stop hustling and start aligning. We have to align with who we are and where we are. And one of the quotes that I said in my book and is so critical is America and the society within America, we're so focused on doing well that we forgot how to be well. We're so focused on doing well that we forgot how to be well.
Ah, love that.
Yeah. And
love that.
And what I found is if you focus on being well first, your life will get better. You'll make more money. You'll be able to buy the things that you really want to, but not only that, you'll enjoy it. Because what's the worst? The worst thing that you can do is obtain success, not be able to sustain it, and then not only that, not enjoy it. Who wants to buy a Porsche and a BMW if you're sitting in the car and you don't even enjoy it and you're stressed out 24/7?
Exactly.
What type of life is that?
And so you just had a trip to Portugal, right?
I did.
Okay. And so I love to travel. I love Europe. I haven't been to Portugal yet, but I've been to Spain, Greece. Just came back from London a couple of weeks ago. The American way is wrong. Would you agree?
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because, you're well traveled. I've traveled in the United States and Mexico, but that was my first trip to Europe, basically overseas, and it was a solo trip. But you're right. They really know how to live. And over here, we know how to work, right? And I think that mindset is a shift. And even for me, I have a strict morning routine. And I'm always like task-oriented, goal-oriented. So when I went out to Portugal, I said, Chazz, this is 10 days of resting and enjoying life. Next thing you know, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I say, Gotta go run, gotta go meditate, gotta make sure hit the train at 10 a.m. And my nervous system turns on, and I'm like, I gotta be task and objective oriented. And I remember waking up, right? And this was when I was in Lisbon, beautiful town. I had an Airbnb, and I woke up and I said, okay, I'm gonna take a train to Sintra. And Sintra is this town about 45 minutes away from Lisbon. And the train left at 10 a.m. And I remember waking up, I said, okay, I got this amount of time. I got to get my morning routine so I feel balanced. So I got my run in, I did my 20 minutes of meditation, and I did some reading. And sure enough, time started to get closer, and I started to rush. And I'm like, Chazz, what are you rushing for?
Where are you supposed to be?
And I'm on vacation. I'm like, Chazz, what are you rushing for? So I got into the Uber, right? And I realized I left my wallet. And I'm rushing back upstairs trying to get my wallet back in the Airbnb. And I'm rushing back downstairs. And in that moment, I got in the Airbnb. I was like, Chazz, if you miss this 10 o'clock train, guess what? Take the 10:20 train. What are you rushing for? What are you trying to get? So you're right, Bianca. I really appreciate you for saying that, because our nervous systems are just constantly wired for achievement, goal-oriented, task-driven things, and we don't know how to live.
Yes, we come out of the present, because I've heard multiple times being abroad, they can always tell who the Americans are, because we're either sitting at a laptop or we're scrolling on our phones constantly. And when you're able to slow down and just like really get into that present, time slows down, and your senses, I know this might sound woo-woo-ish, but your senses even heighten. Like colors become more vibrant, like smells are more, it's amazing. Well, that's my experience, but I'm sure that there's some scientific something that backs what happens when we actually just unplug, cut the cords, and just live in the moment, because the present, honestly, that's all we really have, right? So you said you spent 10 days in Portugal. What was one lesson maybe that you learned that you're going to adopt into your life back here in the U.S.?
No, that's a really good question. I think the biggest thing is similar to what we're talking about, which is how to focus on living while still achieving. I still want nice things, and I still want to live a beautiful life and achieve goals, because I do think that is foundational for the spiritual unfoldment of a human being. But how can I live my life in a way that is in alignment to my spiritual, mental, and physical health? And part of that is creating community. And I realized this within myself and how important this is. So for me, I just moved to Arlington. I was living in Annapolis, Maryland for a little bit. But one of the most important pieces for me that I really see really helps my health and happiness is ensuring that I'm creating community, whether it be at my church, whether it be at my job, as well as, I'm part of the National Speaker Association. So finding ways to create community as I'm living life, not just go to work, come home, eat a bag of potato chips, watch Netflix, and then go to sleep. No, I'm going to go home, have a happy hour or something with my coworkers, maybe go out with some of my church friends on the weekends. So setting up my weeks and my days, weekends, in such a way where I always have something on the docket, and I'm doing something that's either adventurous or hanging out with people. And I want to make sure that I'm living life and not just putting it on the layaway plan and saying, once I make this amount of money, I'll be happy. Once I make this amount of money, I can rest. Once this deal comes through, I'm going to be, this is it. Because it's a trap. There's no such thing. Yeah. All you do is move the goal line. And I've taught this to myself, and I'm trying to teach entrepreneurs and leaders at the same time, so they can literally build a life that feels as good as it looks.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Especially right now with this political climate. And it's been a little rough for like some years now, but I don't think we realize how important we, us as humans, we need each other. So, now with my business in home care, we take care of older adults in their homes. So we help them stay safe in their homes. And the one lesson that I'm learning from older adults is when you get to a certain age, none of this shit matters. None of it. And for the most part, all of my clients require companionship. Even if they are living in the home with family members, there's still an isolation. There's still a loneliness. And have you ever seen that Netflix special? I believe it's Netflix called The Blue Zones.
Yes.
About so listeners, if you have the opportunity, research the blue zones, because these are communities around the world where people are living to 100 and older, centurions. And the one common theme with all of these communities is they have community. They're either living in villages or they're living in households together. There's a close knitness to, these people. And I think, as we talk about mindset and mental health and wellness and all of those things, that is one key factor that is overlooked. It's ignored, but it's so important for us to understand how we need each other. We need to find our tribes, like you said, whether it's church, whether it's professional, personal, we need to lock in too, because it's reciprocal. I look out for you, you look out for me. And my next question that I was about to ask you, if you could discuss some of the signs of burnout in high achievers. But then along with that, it really ties into the importance of having community, because if Chazz, you and I are like, we're networking, we have a relationship or whatever, and I see you're not right, you're not at your level or whatever, I'm going to reach out and say, hey, what's going on? You good? So first question, what are some signs of burnout in high achievers?
Glad you brought that up. I want to go back real quick before I discuss that and just say something about relationships that might kind of tie this in. So when I was doing research on my book, I ran across this study. It's the longest human study done at Harvard University. So over the course of 75, I think 90 years now, they wanted to understand what makes a healthy and happy life. And what they did was, over the course of this amount of years, they did tests over 754 men, I believe, and they wanted to understand, for those people that were living, they did blood tests, they did interviews of their children's children, and they also did body scans and things of that nature, and interviews. And one of the things that they found was the individuals that lived longer and were healthier and happier were those individuals that had meaningful relationships. So this is the secret to life, is developing meaningful relationships on a daily basis, and then understanding how that affects your health as well as your happiness. So, in the work that you do with elderly folks, they understand the secret because they've lived through it. And one of the things I've been trying to do is take all of that wisdom and incorporate it into my life right now, so I can enjoy my life right now. Right. Not on the layaway plan. I'm not going to wait to learn that lesson. And you're right. When you're in business, when you're in the workplace, life gets sweeter. Life gets better when you have great relationships. And if you can build on that, the money flows in too.
Yep.
So I think that's critically important. So I just wanted to say that. But yeah, burnout. So one of the things I actually find is so interesting with a lot of my clients is, of course, there's the telltale signs of stress, waking up with anxiety when you in the morning, or fear in the morning, negative thoughts in the morning. Those symptoms are typically associated with depression as well. When you wake up in the morning, you come back out of your subconscious mind. But nonetheless, there's something interesting that actually happened to me. So when I, in my job, this is 2016, and I had a great job, great salary, but the job wasn't fulfilling. It didn't give me the juice when I was going into work. And one of the things I started to realize was every time I would leave work and go home, I was just drained. Like I didn't even have time to, or I felt like I didn't even have time to spend with my family and friends. And then my unhappiness began to affect them. So through that process, because that change began to happen in my own life because I was burnt out, I started focusing on my health. And once I focused on my habits and my practice on my health, that same job got better. The same job got better because I started to focus internally, and then my external reality began to change. And then not only that, I got a new job after that because that energy I was pouring in, I was making the most of the opportunity as opposed to being a Debbie Downer. That energy comes back to you, and it gives you even more blessings. So the reason why I'm sharing this is because I find that a lot of people are burnt out when they're not in alignment to their purpose, mission, or themselves. And getting back into alignment with their purpose, mission, or themselves helps to increase their energy and their flow in life. The worst thing that you can do is walk into or wake up in the morning and just feel constantly stressed and this anxiety about going into work. And then you leave work, and then you come home, and then you're thinking about work. You don't enjoy the job. You don't enjoy the job. You're stressed out on the weekends because you're thinking about work. And then you come home, and then all you do is watch Netflix to try and drown yourself out from the anxiety
Or social
stress.
media.
Or social media, exactly. So I just wanted to highlight that story because often we think burnout is just stress or anxiety or some of those physical symptoms, but it's also how you feel internally in terms of your purpose, your mission, and alignment to your true self. And understanding that the work that I'm doing daily is in alignment to who I am and where I want to go.
How do you get your clients to step into that though? Because a lot of people are fearful. And what I mean by that, so in 2018, I quit my job, right? Because of the whole misalignment thing. It went on too long for me. When I promoted in 2012, like I said, I had that first big message, me becoming ill in the hospital. I had to shift the way I showed up, internally. But then I gained more clarity that this is not the environment that I'm supposed to be in. And I left. It was a very drastic, I left. And, now in business ownership, I'm just thriving. I'm flourishing because this is alignment. But it's very scary for someone to just wake up and be like, I quit, and that's exactly what my story is. Like, I didn't even have time to think about it. I woke up, I quit. And then I was like, oh shit, I just quit, So how do you help your clients get through that journey that you're so unhappy here? What's the worst thing that can happen if you just take the step? Let's see. So how do you help people get over that initial shock?
Yeah, well, props to you for taking that jump. I would say probably about 95% of people, probably 98, don't have that risk appetite to do that. So what I like to do is I really focus on them in terms of not only, what is it that you enjoy, but also taking care of their mental well-being. So there are certain practices and habits that are contributing to how you feel. So thoughts, actions, habits, character, and then your destiny, right? So where you are in life is all based upon how you're thinking. And one of the things I like to focus on is, what are those habits that are contributing to how you're feeling? Do we need to put in a morning routine? Do we need to change your diet? Are you eating a lot of hyper processed foods? Are you ensuring that you're building community around your family and friends? So there's things that you can do that can start to build momentum, but a big portion of that is your health, okay? And that also means alignment to your spiritual health as well. So I don't like to suggest anybody to just leave their job. A lot of people don't have the resilience like you do and the risk appetite. But I do like to start small, and then all of a sudden there's some momentum, there's some flow. Your language, the conversation in your head begins to change. You start seeing your problems differently. You start to recognize that maybe this adversity is something that's going to carry me to another goal or another achievement or something that's beyond my wildest dreams. So it's first that conversation. And how you change that conversation? Coaching conversations. I give them a book. There are tons of resources that I give them through my 90-day program that they actually have to do, right? But a lot of the people that come to see me, they're either trying to achieve more and make balance, and then there's also the people that are sick and tired of being sick and tired. They've had enough, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to change how they feel. And they'll pay me, and they'll pay me well, because they know that, around the corner, they may be in the hospital because of the stress that they're going through. The high blood pressure medicine is not helping them anymore, because they know that they're going to be in the hospital with the lifestyle that they're living. Something needs to change. So there are people that come to me at that point, but there's also people that come to me that are looking to achieve more, but also stress less in the process.
Yeah. And focus to listeners, y'all heard me say this before. I do not recommend taking the route that I took. I do recommend having a plan, but just starting just one shift. Because there's a quote. I can't remember who it is, but it might be Wayne Dyer. I know you and we've had conversations, and we've read some of the same stuff. We follow some of the same people, and when it's definitely Wayne Dyer. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, and it is so magical. And even when I'm talking to people and I'm trying to empower them, it's hard to get people to grasp how simple these things are to do, these mindset shifts. But it's so hard because we can't see it, is nothing tangible. But just, becoming conscious enough when those thoughts are coming, and you're conscious enough to say, stop. Okay, let me go read a book. Let me turn on some music. Let me do some breath work. I want to ask you about your breath work and your practice, and how powerful, that is with shifting your mindset. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, because breath work is honestly, it's like my cheat code to life. I said it in my book, which is, if you can understand your nervous system and know how to use it appropriately, you can master your destiny. Because any area of your life, you have to manage your nervous system. To speak, to write a book, to produce quality material in your business, to go up and speak to somebody that you've never spoken to before, you have to be able to balance your nervous system. So in my book, I have a breathing technique called Stop Hustling, Start Aligning. And it's a simple breathwork exercise. Most people have heard of it before. It's the 4-7-8 breathwork exercise. And it's really easy. I use it constantly. I've actually shifted to some other breathwork exercises, but for the purposes of this podcast, the 4-7-8 breathing technique is basically trying to calm down what's called your sympathetic nervous system, and trying to spin up your parasympathetic nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight nervous system. We feel it every time we're stressed or there's anxiety. And then there's ways to use breath work to slow that sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, to spin up your rest and digest, your parasympathetic nervous system. And you can get really good at recognizing when stress happens, at recognizing when anxiety happens, and then say to yourself, just as you said, oh, there's a negative thought. What do I need to do about it? Ooh, I'm stressed. What do I need to do about it, right? So the technique is very simple. You breathe in for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7, and then let out, exhale for 8. And you can do that about 4 or 5 rounds. And it's very, the reason why you breathe out, exhale more than you inhale is because you're spinning down your sympathetic nervous system. And it's very easy to do. So,
okay, so let's do it now. So you said breathe in for 4.
Yep, ready?
Hold for.
What did I say? Did I say 7? 4,
Yeah,
7, 8?
hold for 7, and then okay, all right. So guide me through this.
Okay, ready? So we're gonna breathe in. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hold. And we're going to breathe out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just like that. And you can do that multiple rounds. And one of the things that you'll start to notice is your nervous system begins to calm. You'll become more coherent. You may become a little spacey at first, but then you'll come down. I think of it like this. I just left the gym. I go to the sauna a little bit. If you've ever worked out or hit the sauna, you get that really good sort of freshness, that newness in your brain, and you feel balanced. Also, like when you wake up from a great nap, you feel very relaxed. Each time you do this breathwork exercise, it is a super power. I was just on the news in Fox 5 in DC Sunday talking about mental clutter. I usually don't get nervous anymore, but there was some nervousness there. I said, wait a minute, if I'm nervous and I have anxiety or I'm fearful, I'm going to do something about it because I know how to fall back on tools to get me to my goals. So I did a breathwork exercise in the elevator, and I did a breathwork exercise in the changing room. And it completely shifted my mind and my mindset so that I could perform and give people what they needed. And the reason why I think this is so important is because a lot of people say, oh, just think positive. Just think positive. You'll be fine. Good luck. Good luck trying to think positive. Good luck trying to think positive when you're stressed out.
Exactly.
The money's not coming in. You just got laid off at your job. Your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife just left you. People got real life stuff going on.
Exactly.
And here's what I'm trying to communicate. It's hard to think positive when in states of stress. It's much easier to influence your nervous system through breath work so that can influence your body to calm you, and then that induces more positive, coherent thoughts. So you use your body to change your mind as opposed to using your mind to change your body.
Wow.
It's easier to use your body to change your mind during high states of stress. Because if I was in that elevator, right, going up to Fox 5 and I'm stressed out and I'm like, Chazz, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Those affirmations may be great, right? But what's a lot more effective is if I do a breathwork exercise, I influence my nervous system and I'm instantly calm. And I feel it. I feel it.
And then you can believe what you're affirming because, do y'all see how all of this is connected? Like mind, body, spirit is all one big thing. There is no disconnect. And when we're able to align each one, and I love when you said breath work is a superpower, and it is because you can do it anywhere and nobody has to know what you're doing. So work, church, gym, driving, supermarket, anytime that anxiety or whatever starts to creep up, take control. Because we have full control, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget, or I think in most instances, me and you, as we kind of consume knowledge, we like to take action. But there's a lot of people who don't read books. There's a lot of people that don't have the time to listen to podcasts, don't have the time to develop themselves until something bad happens. Then they go seek those resources. So most people actually don't think they have power over how they think. Actually, most people don't think they have power over their nervous system because we haven't been taught it. Nobody teaches this material until you go actively seek it. They're not showing it on the news 24/7. Actually, they're showing the exact opposite.
Exactly.
I've never watched the news and felt empowered after I've watched it.
Exactly.
So and it's okay to be educated. Don't get me wrong. It's okay to be educated about what's going on in society and our communities, but we can't be so educated to the point where we start to realize it puts us in this fear state.
And the teachers don't look like us. So that's why it's so important for the Chazzes and the Biancas, and because our community needs to hear this information. And I always say, in my opinion, which I feel like is more fact than opinion, this is the only thing that's holding us back. It's the only, we have the creativity, we have the freedom, we have the will, but what's lacking is this foundational education that, again, is very simple to apply because we have full ownership of it, but it's hard. And so like I said, we've learned from some of the same people, dead and alive, right? So who are your top three like mentors or teachers that you've learned from through the years?
Yeah. I love this question, Bianca. This is great. But I do want to say one thing real quick. You're right. A lot of, especially in the personal development space, they're all white males. And that was one of the reasons that encouraged me to write my book, because my book, there's a few others, but my book is one of the few that interweaves the Black experience into this self-help space. And you and I both know, we start reading these books and you're like, wait a minute, you don't understand what it's like to be Black in America. You know, some of these techniques aren't relatable.
Yep.
And I started to recognize, you know, there are some solutions that I found in my own life that I wanted to put in print to help us use some of these tailored techniques for us in my own experience. So I'm glad that you brought that up. That's key. So my mentors or my top people, dead or alive, right? Number one is definitely my grandfather who recently passed. His name was Acneo Muldrow. He went to Greensboro, or went to A&T undergrad, and he was part of the original Greensboro sit-ins in the 1960s. Wow. And he, he always talks about how he wasn't in the famous picture that was kind of plastered over the nation, but there is a picture of him. He just wasn't in the big one. But nonetheless, the reason why he's number one is because, you know, throughout his entire life, he had a solid why for supporting Black Americans in economic development. In Baltimore, they called him Kirk Smoke, who's the mayor, and he was the mayor. Now he's the president of University of Baltimore. He called my grandfather the godfather of Black business in America. Wow. Because he was helping to support Black businesses secure small business loans. And, I mean, this guy, and I didn't know it as I was growing up, he was on every board you could think of, Notre Dame, Coppin State, and he knew, you know, a lot of, you know, people, but he dedicated his life to support us. And I really take that to heart, because at this time he's passed away a number of years, but I still use his name to connect with people.
Right.
And that is an amazing legacy. So that's number one. Number two, I think listeners would probably enjoy this one, is Reverend Ike.
Oh, I love Reverend Ike. I love me some Reverend Ike.
Reverend Ike. And the reason why I say Reverend Ike, Bianca, and for most people that don't know, Reverend Ike came out in the 1960s and 70s, and he was one of these preachers that was all about prosperity thinking. He lived a lavish lifestyle, had tons of Rolls Royces, but he was one of the few preachers that were black, had his own syndicated TV show, and talked about sort of this prosperity consciousness on how to live a full life. And a lot of people from the traditional Christian community didn't really like that, but he began to bust a lot of barriers to help black Americans that are successful to actually not feel guilty about their success, but to encourage them to become more successful and prosperous. And I remember, Bianca, I wasn't alive back then, but I remember I was on YouTube, and the algorithm suggested some Reverend Ike videos. I said, who is this guy? Bianca, I started listening to all of his material. I started to get chills.
Exactly. He was so ahead of his time.
So ahead. Like, I would listen to some of his material, and I said, wait a minute. What did he just say? It literally changed my relationship with God.
Yep.
It changed my entire relationship with what God is.
Yep.
And I think that is foundational to the spiritual development of a human soul. And he was black.
Yep.
And I think that was important.
Well, no, he wasn't black. He was green.
That's right. He was green. He was green. He was green. He was green.
Right.
100%. I love that. You are absolutely right. And then I have to, there's a trade-off here. I'm going to have to put two people in. That's Wallace Wattles. He wrote The Science of Getting Rich. For most people that don't know, The Science of Getting Rich was the book that inspired The Secret, which Oprah really pushed and really put law of attraction on the forefront of the world in terms of this thinking, that the way that I think influences my reality. But Wallace Wattles, his Science of Getting Rich book is foundational to personal development. It's not just getting rich financially, it's having a rich spirit, rich relationships. And you read the book, and it really changes the way that you think. And it's a book that I read constantly.
And it's a short read for you all. It's a short read. And the one point that I just want to make is a lot of these books about wealth don't even talk about money. Ain't that crazy? Doesn't even talk about the physical tangible money, because wealth starts from within.
Yes, definitely starts from within, 100%. And then my last one, because I had a tie. Oh my goodness, Bianca! Now I have like three others that come to mind.
No, we can talk all night.
I'll just name a couple. Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote Conversations with God, the series, which is a fantastic understanding of your relationship with God. And then the last one is Eddie Brown, who's still living today. He is one of the... so John Rothers, he was the first African-American to start the first African-American investment firm in Chicago. And Melody Hobson is there as well as the co-CEO. Eddie Brown was the second individual who started, second African-American investment firm, and he started Brown Capital out of Baltimore. And my grandfather knew him very well, and he's a personal mentor to me currently. He probably manages close to 20 billion in funds, asset under management right now. I'm not entirely sure. It's up there in the billions. But the reason why I put him on the list is because regardless of how much money he makes, he just gave like $10 million to Howard University because I was on. Regardless of how much money he makes, the way that he treats people and the way that he treats people that I've seen him around in spaces is amazing, with respect, with kindness. He has an amazing heart, and I think it's rare to see somebody like that that's black, that is very, very successful, doesn't need anybody for anything, but is very kind and patient with people. So he is also on my list as well. I value him as a mentor and a personal friend.
I love this, and I hope y'all were taking notes. If you've been listening to me long enough, I tell you have a pen, some paper, because all of my guests are going to drop major, major gems. So, Chazz, how can the people get in touch with you, follow you, buy the book, learn where you are?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm on Instagram at Chazz, Chazzc, and then Scott, Scott, and that's Instagram, X, as well as TikTok. Constantly posting motivational material to help you reclaim your life, your energy, as well as clarity in your life. And then also, if you're interested in purchasing my book, it's on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, anywhere books are sold. But I would be giving you guys a gift. If you want to just read the first chapter, you can go to chazzscott.com/free book. Actually, I think it's free chapter. Sorry, free chapter, /free chapter. And you can read the entire first chapter for free if you don't believe anything I'm talking about. You can get it, you can go read it for free. So I think that would be incredibly beneficial to your listeners.
So what's next for Mr. Chazz?
Bianca, I just want to enjoy the journey. I think my biggest thing is carrying out this message a little bit more with the book. And with our nonprofit Positively Caviar, every year we do a back-to-school mental wellness workshop for youth. We did it in Baltimore at the Under Armour House every summer in August. Now we're bringing it to D.C. So that's sort of my focus into August, finding sponsorships and finding youth, middle school youth that are interested in coming out to this all-day event full of yoga, meditation, how to eat properly, nutritious food and the importance of that. It's a full-day event, and then we hand out free school supplies at the end. It's going to be at the RISE Demonstration Center in Northeast D.C., so that's going to be my focus as well.
I love it. I would love to have you back. Would you come back?
Absolutely.
I feel like you and I need to, there's some synergy here. We might have to do something in person for Baltimore space, because the people need the message. The people need the message. So thank you so much, Chazz. Look, kudos to you. I love everything that you're doing. And you're just on this journey, and I can just see you're on your way. You're on your way.
I appreciate it, Bianca. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and all the work that you're doing, continuing to push the message and continuing to drive this stuff home for us is just critically important. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Talk to y'all soon.